Do you want to talk to me about Fallout?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Fallout, the new Amazon Prime show, came out to much fanfare. Like, it dropped all at once, which gave me, like, warning signs that maybe Amazon didn't have much faith in this project. But all the press was positive. All the feedback from Twitter was positive. So, I threw it on. I made Frankie watch the first episode. So it's based on the video game series Fallout. I'm sure you've not interacted with Fallout the video game at all, or interacted with the series.
I remember you making a review of it. That's probably the best I know about it.
Besides the dog, you can recruit other characters, like a robot detective or a bitch.
So as somebody who has not even touched the franchise, what did you think of the pilot?
I thought it was a horrible piece of shit. I absolutely hated it, and I would never watch another frame of it.
It's horrible. You're horrible. This thing is horrible. Everything's horrible.
A lot of the positivity, it seems, comes from that video game franchises, when they're adapted into movies, are not usually, or traditionally weren't treated very well. Even actually nowadays, there's like a Halo TV show that everyone's mad at for kind of disrespecting the IP that it's based on.
Yeah, and I don't have that perspective of like, did they do Fallout faithfully? I'm just here to watch a show. Like, I'm kind of more like the wife than the husband. I've never played this game before. Well, it reminded me of Last of Us in a sense that, like, this is a popular game series, a streaming service spent real money on making it, and so probably fans will be happy as long as it's halfway decent. I go into it, there's that opening, so I only saw the pilot, it's an hour and 14 fucking minutes. There's that opening sequence, I don't know, maybe it was like 10 minutes or so. Walton Goggins is like a birthday performer, and there's, the bombs go off. And I thought it was a well-conducted sequence. I was like, ooh, it kind of reminded me of Last of Us, especially, It made me think, I was like, I'm starting to feel like studios or storytellers are using natural disasters, 9/11 style stuff, like Boston Marathon, like terrorist attacks and like horrible cataclysmic events as like a shortcut to, it's starting to feel, now that I've seen it on a few different shows, like a little bit manipulative to my emotions, maybe. I won't hold that against it. If it's done well, it's done well. But like, if you have a dad running around trying to keep his daughter safe from the world falling apart, I'm probably going to be pretty invested in the drama because I'm somebody who would be in a similar situation. So it's like a really easy, putting my child in danger, which is what's happening here, is like the quickest way to my attention. And at times that feels a little bit manipulative, like a shortcut. But fine, whatever. The bombs going off was haunting, and I thought it was pretty artful and cool. And then they go to Lucy in her like colony there. And I do remember like what I've seen of the press around Fallout, like from, just from living in the zeitgeist. There's a lot of like ironic music and comedy that plays against the drama of the game and the disaster of the game. And that's all here. It's like every time somebody's getting cut to shit, somebody's like, and I did it my way. Or, and I actually, I'm like, other than the fact that I know that that's part of the style, what is motivating that like ironic comedy, that like juxtaposition thing? Like why is this meant to be tongue in cheek when it's so obviously serious?
Well, I mean, it's because the games are.
Who live and love in my hometown.
Well, like your job as a storyteller is to come up with something, make things make sense.
Well, the games, it has the 1950s like retro future kind of look to it with the lounge music and stuff like that. It's all baked into the series. I mean, it was doing something different, like when most turn-based RPGs at the time were swords and sorcery. This was like, oh, what if we did a post-apocalyptic future with like retro 50s technology and stuff like that? So it's
so it's meant to play against the technology.
Well, it's about surviving in a post-apocalyptic world, obviously, but it's an alternate future where everyone like bombed themselves to death in a kind of a 1950s, but like Jetson-y 1950s.
Some enchanted evening. I don't know. By the seventh time, I was like, okay.
Some enchanted evening. Some enchanted evening.
Yeah, they especially in the pilot, they were like piling on the slow-mo in every moment.
What it comes down to is At no point in the hour and 15 minutes, which I thought was more like 35 minutes of story, because I thought the pacing and rhythm was way off. I didn't think there was really a lot of
Well,
story.
Amazon has commercials now, and so they have to stretch out all these things.
So more bad incentives that harm the story. There wasn't like maybe Lucy to some degree, just because I thought the actress was somewhat charismatic, but
Yeah.
there really wasn't an actor or a character in this thing that I was connecting with, that I was like pushing into to be like, oh, I want to know how they're going to react to that. I want to know what's going to happen next with that. My biggest critique with Last of Us was that I felt like the narratives were kind of like micro narratives, where they would set up a big problem and they would kind of resolve it in like 40 minutes and then they'd move on. But I thought like the season finale kind of stuck the landing. I thought that, Joel was well realized and the girl was well realized. And I thought the production value kind of like kept itself up that whole season. Like I give that, like for me, that's like a B- show. Like, and a lot of elements of it would get an A. I just didn't really connect all that much with the story. I didn't feel like I was like all that connected to the stakes. Whereas this, like, I'm not connected to anything. So I thought Last of Us was significantly better than this pilot.
Going forward, I don't think the characters, to me, get much more interesting. I saw the whole thing from beginning to end, and so the positive is obviously the design. It's if you like the Fallout games, you're gonna like it. There is something to it where it's like, oh, I'm glad that they're thinking of the audience. Like they're so or the fans, because there's so often where with Star Wars, with even modern Marvel, there's like, fuck the fans, whatever, we're gonna do it.
I noticed a lot of series will pretend that they're expensive and they're not that expensive. I got that impression from this. They strategically spent their money, but a lot of the runtime was actually pretty like just in little controlled environments and stuff. Yeah. Like I wasn't really dazzled by the visuals. Like I thought I was gonna be, because they kicked off with a bang.
Yeah, and like the story for me was very plotty. She has to get like a mark that she's after, the Brotherhood of Steel guy, Maximus, he has to go after, and then Walton Goggins' character has to go after. So they're all like converging on the same mark. And then once they attain whatever the technology is there, it becomes very much like getting this thing from point A to point B. It feels very video gamey.
Like a video game, yeah.
And so in that sense, like if you just want to watch a Let's Play of Fallout, it's sort of like that.
Can you beat Fallout 3 as Abraham Lincoln? We learned that she used to be a slave of Alistair Tenpenny. So...
But without any of the things that make the interaction fun in a video game, and like have personalization, and I don't think the characters were all that strong to me. I thought they were pretty thin, one-dimensional. And then in the ending, I think, was pretty obvious what they were going to do. And when they did it, I was kind of disappointed in them for not being a little more clever. It's basically like, I mean, in the original games, it's very much like making fun of hyper-capitalism and all that stuff. But they basically make hyper-capitalists the like evil bad guy, which I think is not really in the same spirit of the game, where like there's a little more complexity to it.
It's a little ironic to have like a big anti-capitalist message on Amazon Prime.
Exactly. Like this corporation basically wants to make a monopoly, and facilitates the end of the world. Spoilers. I don't care. This show kind of sucks. But and so it's a very rich that Amazon. It's on Amazon. It's being promoted by Amazon. It's like, all right, I guess you can do that.
I've noticed that one of the ways people react when I feel strongly is they'll say something like, "But wait, there's way worse shows than this." Their measuring stick is something like, there's a lot of really bad shows or really generic shows, network TV shows. At least you should be able to acknowledge that this is, a little bit more prestigious, or a little bit, a little more care was put in. And that's all fair. That's all totally true. If your measuring stick is like how low can the floor go? But for me, I get this feeling of, like that strong reaction of like, this thing's a piece of shit and I don't want to watch it anymore. When I'm so disconnected from the characters, I'm so uninterested in the drama that I start to get frustrated that like I'm still watching it. Because there's also like a buyer's remorse thing a little bit with like the time invested, and I'm kind of like, I keep hoping that something's going to happen, and it starts to become obvious that like there's nothing here for me. And so yeah, I suppose if I were to graded on a curve, then fair enough. But just purely my level of interest was like 0.
I think the fact that it was so faithful to the Fallout series, like visually and like aesthetically, they brought in like the right care to that aspect. I think that brought me along through the series enough, but I think at the end of the day, I don't really have much to hang my hat on. Character wise, I like the Lucy character. I mean, I liked her visually. Like she's like her big freakish eyes that you want to stare into. Walton Goggins, obviously, you want to. He's like, I don't think he's written well, but he's got so much natural charisma that you want to follow him.
Quite nasty.
Can I just say really quickly, Antagonizer is so sexy to me. What a cool name. Like, I would definitely want to make out.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.